Keep watching.
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555. Visit www.bronxpost.com for breaking news and updates. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative.
Okay, welcome to Talking Politics. My name is Robert Press. I am a reporter. As you can see, my official New York City press card. I write for the Bronx Post, which is like this show, a part of Parrot Media Corporation. I also have a blog at www.100%bronx.blogspot.com, and Facebook page is 100% and what is going on in your community board. My co-host on my right is...
Good morning, Robert. Good morning, everyone. My name is Professor Anthony Rivieccio. I am the CEO of Rivieccio Online Tax Advisors and a retired professor. And as I'm sure most people can see, I now have gray hair and I have an official income tax calculator that can show you how hard I'm working. Good morning, everybody.
Okay, Anthony.
Oh, I didn't forget, I'm also the founder of a wonderful club called Northwest Bronx Democrats. Forgive me.
And he has a Facebook page, Northwest Bronx Democrats, which
Thank you, Rob.
A lot of people love, especially the women. The views expressed on this show are that of the host, any guest, or anyone commenting at the bottom of the screen, not necessarily that of Parrot Media Corporation. And we missed you last week, but I had a guest that filled in adequate for you, Roxanne Delgado.
Did a good job, too, and I
want to thank
apologize.
Roxanne for that.
No, I think she did a great job. I think the show did a great job. I think you did a great job. I do apologize. I got called at the last minute. I'm hoping it actually don't happen today.
Okay, let's go to a weather report. You know, yesterday the high was 75, Anthony. Did you like it?
I heard rumors, Robert. Is that really true? You know, I was in my office all day, you know, with my official calculator that I was showing you earlier. And, you know, I just heard rumors to the effect that the sun was out. I don't know if it's accurate or not.
Well, today, the high for today happened at 12:01 a.m. when it was 63 degrees. The temperature will drop into the 40s tonight with a high Saturday of 43. Sunday, the high gets up to 51, gets back up to 63 on Monday, and 70 will return on Wednesday. Let's get into the world news of the Iranian war. Tehran launched missiles at the joint U.S.-United Kingdom Diego Garcia base in the Indian Ocean. The Iranian attack at the base, located about 2,500 miles from Iran, suggests that Tehran has in its stockpile missiles that can go further than it had previously acknowledged. On Monday, President Donald Trump said that Iran had 48 hours to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or else face American destruction on its power plants. Iran responded that if Trump followed through on his pledge to obliterate, they would retaliate in kind against America and Israeli regional energy interests and critical infrastructure. The war, now in its fourth week, President Trump said, might soon be over and that the reopening of the strait would be just a simple military maneuver. Tuesday, Israel, I'm going day by day. Tuesday, Israel suffered some of the worst hits.
You're going day by day?
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, good night, everybody. It was nice talking to you.
I want to hear from you. All right, Tuesday, Israel suffered some of its worst hits of the war as Iranian strikes penetrated the Israeli Iron Dome defenses and hit multiple cities, injuring many dozens. At least one of the strikes was aimed at a nuclear facility in Israel. attacks continued across Iran, Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The U.S. said its attack on an Iranian underground facility had successfully degraded Tehran's power to gum up the Strait of Hormuz. Iran claimed that its Natanz nuclear site had also been attacked. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia's de facto leader, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, has been pushing President Trump to continue the war against Iran, arguing that the U.S.-Israeli military campaign presents a historic opportunity to remake the Middle East. And the Pentagon is planning to deploy about 3,000 soldiers from the Army's elite 82nd Airborne Division to the Middle East to support operations against Iran, according to two top United States officials. And the Trump administration has sent Iran a 15-point plan designed to bring an end to the war. You okay?
I got a 15-point plan that I want to get my landlord to lower my rent, and I think I got a better shot getting that approved than this. Go ahead.
That political reports, with more than 2,500 dead and millions displaced across the Middle East, Iranian state TV said Wednesday Iran rejected the U.S. proposal for a peace deal and instead offered its own hardball 5-point plan, which goes as this. Iranian demands include the closure of all American bases in the Gulf, the payment of reparations for missile attacks on Iran, plus the lifting of all existing sanctions. They report Iran wants to collect fees for ships going through the Strait of Hormuz and an end to Israeli attacks on Hezbollah and permission to restart its missile building program without limits. A United States official, who will remain unnamed, called the demands ridiculous and unrealistic, the Wall Street Journal reports. Mediators, though, from Turkey, Egypt, and Pakistan are still pushing to secure a meeting between the U.S. and Iranian officials, but nothing has been confirmed yet. We move on to Wednesday.
Robert, if I might, I know I've told you off the air. I want to tell you on the air because I think it's just important that your audience know in full disclosure. You're looking and talking to a U.S. serviceman in the Navy that during that time, I was on one of those submarine ships when we had hostages in Iran. And there was very considerable movement towards going in to get those hostages physically. That never happened, but I can tell you now, many people, including myself, were on 30-minute standby for about 3 days. So, yeah, so I'm very mixed, feeling as to what's going on. I do believe part of it is a war. I mean, you just don't take out the leader of a country and call it a military operation. You have to, fess up to what it is. And again, I actually got mixed feelings about it. Part of me thinks it's terrible. Part of me, of course, thinks it's revenge from 40-something years, which, of course, people my age probably, look at it as. As far as how it's affecting our country, I think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating because 40 years ago, Saudi Arabia, for example, was not such a good friend to us as a country. And there are many other countries that we are now allied with today that we wouldn't even have thought of 40 years ago when we had this Middle East problem. And it wasn't just Iran, there were other Middle East issues. So I'm just fascinated. And I'm going to cap it off by saying and ask you this question that I don't know if you saw the report within the last 24 hours that I understand, and I might be saying this wrong, that many Yemeni groups here in the United States are now promoting and advocating Iran over the United States.
I haven't seen that yet.
That has come out in several newspapers. I believe here in New York, I believe it was in the New York Post, but it's also in other newspapers that there are many Yemeni groups, throughout the United States that they're now surveying, and most of these groups are favoring Iran.
Well, we have in Brooklyn, and some have come here to Little Yemen in the Bronx, We have people from North Yemen, which was the Yahya Obid people who started the businesses and developed the little Yemen area. But other people from southern Yemen have come in, and the northern Yemenis were aligned with Saudi Arabia, and the southern Yemenis were aligned with Iran, and it's still going on, the civil war in Yemen. Okay, and it appears that in the Bronx now, in the 49th precinct especially, we're having some problems with the two sides. But let me continue. On Wednesday, Israel launched strikes on Iran. Iran fired towards a U.S. aircraft carrier. As Anthony said, he was in a sub. So, and Lebanon said 22 people died there as new Israeli strikes landed. Iraq fumed at the U.S. after a strike that killed 7 soldiers. Iranian state TV said a nuclear power plant had been struck again, and Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammed Bagher Ghalbaf, I hope I pronounced that right, warned Tehran was watching potential U.S. troop deployments. And yesterday, a senior Iranian official told Reuters that the Trump proposal is a one-sided and unfair plan. The plan lacks the minimum requirements for success and served only U.S. and Israeli interest. The Pentagon is considering whether to divert weapons intended for the Ukraine to the Middle East as the war in Iran depletes some of the U.S. military's crucial munitions. Now, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is pushing to bring negotiations to enter the war in his home country after weeks of the conflict in Iran has dominated the world's attention. The Kremlin has said that talks are in a situational pause. Meanwhile, drone strikes are raising the death toll in the Ukraine. Now, Anthony, do you think that the big, beautiful bill can afford this war in Iran? And I'm going to turn it over to you.
That's a very good question, Robert. Can the big, beautiful bill afford this war? We're going to talk about that right now for just a few moments under a new segment we're going to create called Political Money. Before I answer that question, though, let's talk about the economy for a moment in general, right? Because at the end of the day, we all have U.S. dollars in our pocket, right? We also have U.S. dollars in our bank accounts, and how are they doing? Well, as we speak, Robert, as we speak, the stock market today is down 1.2% as we speak. Of course, the market closes at 4 o'clock today. Yes, and make sure, Robert, you give me a call so you can buy lunch. I hope that goes a long way.
Well, it's only a $2 bill, Anthony.
I got you. But for the week, Robert, believe it or not, for the week, the stock market went down 2%. More important than that, we now are in a stock market correction. If you look at October of last year up until today, the stock market has now gone down 10%. Very, very worrisome. I would tell people, please talk to your financial advisor. When we talk about interest rates, well, over the last several weeks, because of what's been happening with our economy, interest rates have been going up. They haven't been going down. Right now, you can get a 10-year mortgage rate at 4.41%. I think the question has to be asked, was it too late for Jerome Powell? I think that is a very interesting question. Donald Trump has said Jerome Powell, he calls Jerome Powell too late Powell, meaning that he's too late pulling the gun on lowering interest rates. Today, I think that's a legitimate question. But Robert, our economy needs money. You know why our economy needs money? Because I'm sure you heard Netflix has gone up. Netflix has gone up in prices. They've gone up 11%. All of their plans on average as of April 1st will go up $1 to $2 per month, or on average 11%.
Now, Anthony, you told me about a friend of yours who has all these streaming services, and how much does it cost him? Right? We were talking before the show.
I'm doing Bill Clinton, by the way. I just want you to know that. Okay. So I don't know. I got to double check that. But I think if I go check grocery prices, right? If I go check grocery prices, Bob, believe it or not, grocery prices are now up 8 to 11% a year, 3 times higher than the rate of inflation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need money, right? Where are we going to get this money? You can't go into your bank account and spend your money, right? You are making good money if you're working, right? But as you showed, you know, the value of that money is hard. So where are we getting extra money? We're getting extra money because now it's income tax season. That's where we're getting extra money. And everybody's looking for that $1 billion refund. And Robert, you know what? Income tax refunds are going up this year. They're going up on average about 10% this year. In dollar terms, that could be anywhere from $300 to $400, which actually is very significant. Where is that coming from? As you indicated, it's coming from the big, beautiful bill. But it's really only affecting 30% of Americans. In 3 categories, it affects, number one, the biggest group, seniors. The second biggest group, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, no tax on overtime. Well, no tax on overtime is the highest second group. And then I'm sure you've heard the phrase, no tax on tips. Those 3 areas together have brought an increase of about 30%. I want to tell you quickly how they work, and especially for the audience if they fall into these categories. First category, number one, seniors. Now, again, this represents 20% of tax filers. So seniors 65 or older are allowed this year, and it's temporary, sadly, till 2028, a $6,000 income tax deduction. Let me emphasize that deduction. It's not cash, it's deduction. It's supposed to lower your tax liability. And as I always say, the lower you lower your tax liability, the higher your tax refund becomes. That's $6,000 based on its average senior tax bracket. I would say about 10 to 15% can get that average senior citizen back $1,000 to $1,500, where I would assume, as with most Americans, they'll either spend it, save it, invest it, or do all 3. When I talk about overtime, overtime affects 7% of Americans. The 7% of Americans work overtime. And according to the big, beautiful bill, we are allowed to deduct unlimited amount of overtime. And the way it works is, and I'm sure you might have heard the phrase, time and a half. Well, what you deduct is the half. So if you make $20 an hour and you work overtime, and that overtime now turns out to be 30, well, you're allowed to deduct the 10. So if you made, say, $10,000 of overtime based on one tax bracket, that could be up to a $2,000 tax refund. Let me emphasize, with overtime, it is now supposed to be on your W-2 as a separate item. This is the first year of compliance. So please check your W-2. If it's not there, you want to tell your tax person right away. Third and lastly, tips. Tips represent only 2% of Americans, but I think still very important because you are allowed to deduct up to $25,000 in tips with no tax. Again, with a 10% tax bracket attached to that, it could be a savings of $2,000 to $2,500. So if you're a senior or you're a working American dealing with tip income or overtime income, so again, together we're talking 30% of Americans, their tax refund is going to be wonderful. Robert, back to you.
Now, Anthony, there's a problem there. You're only talking about federal taxes, correct?
Correct.
And we have a $256 billion budget in the state that our wonderful Governor Kathy Hochul, who needs to go, is our state taxes are way too high. And then there's a new mayor, Zohan Madami, who wants to raise property taxes 9.5%, because Kathy Hochul doesn't want to raise personal income taxes or corporate taxes. And what happens when they raise corporate taxes? Our prices go up even higher. So I'm going to kick it back to you.
I might have gone over my segment, so I don't know if I'm
no. We have another about 3 minutes, 4 minutes to go. I told the producer, and I'll call for the commercial. Don't worry. So go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to keep my economics hat on for a moment as opposed to my political hat. And I'll just say you're right. You're right in the sense that New York City, New York State, right? You put them together. We are considered one of the highest tax states in the nation, if not the highest.
Second to only California.
So middle class America, I'm being very general. Middle class America, if they make $50,000, $60,000 around here in the East Coast, not only will they probably be in a 25% federal tax bracket, but then yes, you add city, state. I'm giving you a rough Northeast number. I would plug in 15%. That's how high it is. So yes, then you would have the 25 with the 15. That's 40. Now keep in mind, I also haven't mentioned Medicare tax and all the little miscellaneous taxes, right? So yes, when you add up all your taxes together, I say in some cases, if you can get all that back, right, that's better than investments, right?
Yeah,
because the way to get it back, in my opinion, is through tax planning, because tax planning is guaranteed getting that savings back instead of trying to get it at the stock market, where right now we're losing 1.2% right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are some states that don't have a state income tax, and there's no city tax either in these states like Florida, Nevada, Texas. I mean, Texas, especially since they have all the oil. Nevada has the gambling. So I mean,
that's true. That is very true. But I also think then you have to look for the other side of that coin. I mean, states can't live for free. Right. So if they tell you there's no income tax, that's wonderful. But of course, then they're going to get it from the other side. So you have to look at their sales taxes and other type of taxes that can eat that up. I actually like the sales tax approach myself, only because you know exactly what you're spending and where it's going. That's just my own opinion. But when you hear no income tax from the state, I know that's always a very nice draw. I say to people, re-examine that, because if the sales tax is 10, 12% and you go shopping once a week, well, you know what? It comes out to about the same thing.
Well, sales tax isn't on everything. It's only on certain items.
That depends on the state that you're going to live in.
And I see our producer is saying he wants us to wish Ephraim Gonzalez a happy birthday. That's one of my friends, Ephraim, and Anthony's friend. We're going to pause here now. We're at our break. Normally, I would wait another minute or so. But, Mr. Producer, let's go to a commercial now so we can come back with some more national news and local news. Okay? So let's break for our commercial now at the 24-minute mark.
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555. Visit www.bronxpost.com for breaking news and updates. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative.
Okay, let's welcome our audience back. Before I get into politics, I want to say that I was at the Waterbury LaSalle Community Association last week. I saw our good friend Kevin Diola. He was one of the people that was performing CPR on there. They had a EMS with their dummies there, that you practice CPR on, and Kevin did a great job. So, all right, let's get into Democratic.
Did they survive?
They were dummies.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Practice dummies.
Gotcha.
Okay? It's not like he did it on a live person.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay, let's get into Democratic infighting. There's growing frustration with Chuck Schumer as talks of replacing him are becoming normal. Democratic U.S. Senator Chris Murphy was dining with progressive activists at a French restaurant in Washington's Georgetown neighborhood when the conversation about how to advance their legislative priorities turned to a thorny question: what to do about Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Murphy's response: that some lawmakers had been doing informal counts to see if there were enough votes that existed to remove Schumer from his leadership post, and some prominent Capitol Hill Democrats are discussing how to get U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer to step aside as minority leader amid concerns about his negotiating style and midterm strategies. As it stands, Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is rumored to either run for president or more likely to challenge Schumer for his U.S. Senate seat if he runs again in 2028. Do you think that Ocasio-Cortez could beat Schumer if they battle?
You're really asking me a two-part question. I don't know if you realize that. The first part being that question, do I think there's a possibility of a battle? Yeah, I think there is a possibility of a battle. What I think worries me, however, is even though I do believe that Schumer's leadership skills need to be revised, because I do think he is a weak leader. On the other side of the coin, he does still bring leverage, and leverage at this time, in my opinion, when you have to count every vote, literally, you have to count every vote. Leverage is very, very important. If Ms. Ocasio beat Chuck Schumer, which I think is very possible, but then she goes into the Senate with no leverage, zero leverage. And that's the part that worries me.
Just a pretty face. Now, the Supreme Court declined to hear a challenge to the new state law that will move local elections to even-numbered years to align with state and federal races, according to court documents that were released. The move comes after New York's highest court, the Court of Appeals, ruled in October the law is constitutional. Passed by New York State Legislature and signed by Governor Kathy Hochul in December 2023, the law moves most town and country races outside of New York City to even-numbered years to coincide with races for Congress, governor, or president. The change excludes villages and races for county clerk, sheriff, district attorney, local judges, and others protected under the state constitution, like the New York City elections.
Robert, I'm so glad I retired from politics, because that's the fourth time I've heard that announcement, and it's the fourth time I can tell you I have no idea what you're talking about. I think it's just my own opinion. I think it's just a question of all the new muckety-muck consultants getting together and making sure they can get top dollars somehow, somewhere. And all of a sudden, you've got this new schedule.
For instance, here in 2024, we have the governor's race in New York. In 2026, we have it. In 2028, we'll have the presidential race. In 2030, it'll be governor. So every even year will be a race either for governor or president. And in presidential years, it said that 18% more people vote. And Kevin Diola is wishing Ephraim a happy birthday, young Ephraim. Let me move on to some quick items now. The 2030 U.S. Senate census is poised to look very different from the one that was released in 2020 because the Trump administration is radically changing who it wants to count and how it's counting them.
They're going to find the white people now?
No, they're looking not to count immigrants anymore, most likely. But
okay. Who are they going to count?
only the white people, or
Just white
the
people.
citizens. No, well, the citizens, Anthony, the people who are citizens of the country,
The people who okay.
like you and
Okay.
I. Hopefully, you're a citizen,
Okay.
right?
Well, how do I know if you're a citizen? I don't know if you're a citizen.
I am.
I
Are
got some
you?
people in your neck of the
Okay.
woods that tell me you come from another country. I don't
Let's
know.
continue. The Senate voted to confirm former U.S. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen as Secretary of Defense of the Department of Homeland Security, installing him as the embattled national security agency amid global instability and frustration over immigration enforcement. He replaces Kristi Noem. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials have been
Don't you
deployed to
think she was
airports.
cute?
What?
Didn't you think she was cute?
She's got a different job.
If you had to fool around with somebody in the office, wouldn't she be one of the ones you fool around with?
No, Anthony, she's got another job elsewhere. Immigration. Let me continue. Immigration, customs officials, enforcement officials have been deployed to airports, including LaGuardia, Kennedy, Newark, and others across the nation amid a partial federal government shutdown, thanks to Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. That's in its sixth week, and has led to longer than normal waits at security checkpoints. Now, do you think that these ICE agents are helping? There's a report that there was a 2-year-old that was choking. An ICE agent went over and performed CPR on the infant, and it stopped the choking. So, I mean, they're not all bad, are they? But after
I don't know, if the audience knows, it was announced this morning that the Senate has passed the, DHA funding bill, Department of Homeland Security funding bill that's now going to the House, where I'm sure it's going to give them
without funding for ICE, though.
Correct.
Kevin wants to know if you had a Freudian slip, white people.
If I had a Freudian slip?
Yeah.
What do they call it now? He could be right. I mean, what do they call white people now? Caucasian? Is that the new name?
That's the way it's been for a while.
Kevin, I apologize. You're looking at a guy that was born in 1960. So we kept it very simple when I was growing up, right? You were white, black, orange, green, red, blue.
All right. Let's not get us in trouble, Anthony.
Mercury. We kept it very simple.
Let's not have the FCC come after us.
Okay, I got you.
Now, after the Department of Justice failed to convict State Attorney General Letitia James on charges of mortgage fraud last year, the Trump administration's federal housing chief, Bill Proucer, has filed a new criminal referral to the department, this time asking prosecutors to investigate Letitia James for insurance fraud. That's interesting. As I said before, Robin,
I do feel a little bad for her because do I think she's going to get in trouble for that? Yes. How much trouble is another story, but that's not the real, charge that they were looking for.
Yeah.
Now they're reaching. It's almost like, I hate to use this as an example, but it's the only example that comes to my mind. It's almost like Al Capone, right? Al Capone didn't go to jail for the 3,000 people he killed, right?
No,
he went to jail because he failed to do his taxes, right? So in my opinion, that's the same situation here.
Well,
I think it's
the original complaint was that she filed for a loan for a home, saying that it was her prime location. So how could you have a prime location in Georgia and be the state of New York Attorney General? Okay, you have to live in New York to be the Attorney General.
She's innocent. I do believe, as I indicated a minute ago, and especially being a financial advisor, I know insurance laws are they're very strict when the institutions want to be. So yeah, she'll have to answer to that. But again, I really think people are reaching at this point too. And I'll leave it like
that. Let's talk a little bit about the state budget. Key Democratic state lawmakers do not expect the budget deal will be in place by next week's deadline, setting up the potential for protracted negotiations stretching into April. There's not even discussions going on about a budget, Senate Finance Committee Chair Liz Krueger said, who also said that the budget looks like it will not come until after Easter. A state spending plan has to be is due to pass by March 31st, and they only have half a day this year, the final day of New York's fiscal year. yet a host of issues are unresolved. Governor Kathy
So
Hochul
you're
is
saying
under.
that, Robert, there's a possibility this election year that we'll be voting for candidates that we'll never see because they're up in Albany?
Well, Governor Kathy Hochul is under pressure from the left, including Mayor Zohan Madami, to raise taxes, a move that moderate Democratic governor has not embraced. And according to State Senate Deputy Majority Leader Mike Gianaris, next week might be ambitious. Lawmakers in Hochul must have a budget in place or approve and extend the bill by midday Tuesday, so many state workers are paid. And if there is no state budget, the elected officials do not get paid. So let's move on to a Rikers timeline. That fixing Rikers won't happen fast. Manhattan Federal Court Judge Laura Swan says it could take up to 7 years to turn around the city's troubled jail system after she recently appointed a former Vermont prisons chief to lead the overhaul. Nicholas Demo, who once served in the CIA, must submit his initial plan by late May. The timeline underscores the magnitude of the task ahead, reversing a nearly decade of failed reforms at city jails where violence, death, and dysfunction have only worsened since the 2015 consent decree was supposed to fix things. Swan emphasized that this timeline is not all or nothing at all. Now, 63 detainees have died behind bars on Rikers Island over the past 5 years under Mayor Eric Adams and Mayor Bill de Blasio. Demo's authority goes well beyond that of past correctional commissioners in several key areas. He can hire, fire, promote, transfer staff, create or eliminate positions, and rewrite policies and procedures across 18 areas of the jail system that city officials failed to fix despite a decade of court orders. That includes the use of force policies, investigation of violent incidents, staff discipline, protection of young people in custody, supervisory requirements. He can also direct the commissioner, Stanley Richards, to take specific actions, and he answers to Swan, not the mayor or any other city official. And I must say that a 39-year-old man died Wednesday while in custody at Rikers Island, the first reported under Mayor Zohan Madami and DOC Commissioner Stanley Richards. The cause of the death has not been determined as of this morning. Any comments on Rikers Island, Anthony? Have you been there lately?
Have I been to Rikers Island? Not since 1976. However, I have been to Bruckner Boulevard very recently. And I can tell you that the new Bronx jail, that is of course supposed to be one of 5 jails to replace Rikers.
Staten Island's not going to have a jail.
Oh, they were almost ready. They're almost ready. I passed through there, and I would venture to say that if it was going to be built as a building, I would say they'd be ready by the summertime. So there's going to be something down the road very quickly that I'm going to presume the new council person, Justin Sanchez, is going to have to get involved with, because, do you keep that building now sitting there until you resolve this problem? Because again, I think by the summertime, they're ready to go.
And what's that, 20 or 22 stories?
I don't know if it's that high. I would say 12.
No, it's more than that, Tony. I think it's about 20 stories. So the idea is not to have the prisoners or the people in custody spread out so they have room, but to put them up like a NYCHA project. And when we know what happens with the NYCHA projects, they failed.
Yeah, and, like I said, I can't speak for the other boroughs. I can only speak for the Bronx. But I can tell you, they started building that last year. They never stopped. They never paused. And if I looked at it like any other building construction, they'd be ready to go by the summertime. So either they're going to, they might consider maybe putting Bronx people in there, maybe as early as next year.
They'll bring them in from Brooklyn like they did with the homeless. They sent people from Brooklyn so they can clean up Brooklyn and sent those people up to the Bronx.
Well, I mean, I would only advocate using it because, like I said, it's going to be ready by the summertime. So,
well, Manhattan,
to have to sit there, I think would be a waste.
Manhattan and Brooklyn, I don't think they've even started on those jails. So it's going to take a couple of years. And let's move on to the Madami administration. And as I call him, flip-flop Madami. After the Madami administration announced about $246 million in savings from the New York City budget, a fraction of the $1.7 billion that the mayor built in his spending plan for next year, as it struggles to fill a multi-billion-dollar budget gap of $5.4 billion, which Controller Levine says is over $7 billion. Now the Madami administration has quietly identified another $1.3 billion in potential savings from scaling back programs the mayor has endorsed on his campaign trail. He has flip-flopped on a state mandate to reduce class size, meaning that children in kindergarten to grade 3 must have only 20 children, grades 3 to 5, 23 children, and grades 6 to 12, 25 children. He has, including delaying a state mandate to reduce class size. He's also lowering the cost of a rental assistance program called City Thefts, which I'm sure that Councilwoman Parina Sanchez, who started that program and has called for it because the costs are rising there. When it started in 2019, it was $25 million. This year alone, it's almost $2 billion and projected to go up between $5 and $10 billion. So he is calling on, cutting that back, which is the subject of a legal dispute with the city council, according to the New York Times. And he has also made a flip-flop or about-face on mayoral control of public schools. He said he didn't want it. Now he wants to keep mayoral control of public schools. So we can now name, we had the late Bill de Blasio, the crooked Eric Adams. Now we have the flip-flop Mayor Zohan Madami. And any comment on flip-flopper?
Well, what I would tell the audience, and I think it's important for the show long-term, is that one of the reasons why we are creating the segment Political Money is just for this reason, right? In the next several weeks, we're going to have segments on the city budget. We're going to talk about different parts of the budget, see if they're economically viable in this, in this environment, and get and sort of do a semi-deep dive in certain parts of the budget. As a financial professional, I must say, I'm always skeptical when I hear these, budgetary situations, because I come from a family that's very modest. So I can't believe that we are the richest city in the world, and all of a sudden having these problems. Unless you tell me that Eric Adams, which is possible, because for the last 3 months of his administration, he did go away, right?
All right.
So if you tell me he took the money with him, then I believe it.
He didn't. We're going to have to end the show here now, Anthony. We're running out of time. I had wanted to talk about a couple of other items, including Bruce Blakeman running against Kathy Hochul, who is now within 9 points in the latest poll of Kathy Hochul. So he's closing the gap. Maybe we'll have a new governor next year. We don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I want to thank you as my co-host, Anthony. And I want to thank everybody who was viewing the show, whether it's live or you're going to watch it on YouTube. So I want to thank you for watching. And Anthony, you want to thank our audience?
I sure do. Everybody, thank you for watching. Watch us on YouTube. Watch us when it's available to you. And watch us live every Friday at 12.
That's it, Mr. Producer. Take it away. Okay. I got to type in something for him. Let's see if he sees that. What are we going to talk about next week? He'll cut us off when he wants to, Anthony. So what can we talk about next week? You have anything? I mean, the war in Iran should either be over or continue.
We can't. I mean, that's way too early. I mean,
I don't have
a topic for a particular segment, but as far as news,
no. My crystal ball is gone. Remember,
what you can think about. I don't know if you've seen some of the recent notification. Some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Some of the candidates are now coming out, as far as this year's elections. I mean, have you seen the 80th Assembly situation?
So who's running?
Miss Denise Smith.
Oh, yes, she's running against John Sicaro Jr. and company, and he has an Easter egg festival hunt tomorrow at 11 a.m. I believe on Pelham Parkway at Williamsbridge Road. I will probably go there and ask him how many signatures he has, because I understand that he's having a hard time getting signatures. Last I heard, he had about 800. He needs 450 valid signatures. And in the past, you always wanted to get at least 2,000 or 3,000 signatures to be safe. But,
the old.
It looks like Team Jay-Z is not going to come in with much signatures. Well, he's got his district leaders, Christine Culpepper and Ardmir Dula, and that wonderful state committee man who is in charge of the White Plains Road bid, Malcolm Gray. And, well, they're getting rid of the they have a state committee woman that they're getting rid of and replacing with Jean Hill. And you know Jean Hill a lot better, Anthony. She ran for district leader at one time and was beaten by Irene Estrada. And Irene got more votes in Jean's own building than Jean got. So,
well, the 80th Assembly District, which I used to live in for over 40 years, so of course I have many wonderful memories as well as playing politics in that area. But you currently live in the 80th Assembly District. As really, 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 in many, 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 many ways, from community to governance, to elected officials, to party officials, has changed very dramatically. And I'm not saying that for any criticism, except to say, as the Bronx has evolved, some people would say that the northeastern part of the Bronx has been the last part to sort of evolve with the rest of the Bronx. And now you would say it's starting to evolve with the rest of the Bronx. So you're starting to see different changes in your neck of the woods. And you're also seeing different changes in election thought. And I don't know where this thought comes from, by the way. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's because people are getting lazy. I don't know if it's because this is the new way to do it. I don't know if it's because of COVID. But as you indicated earlier, when I came into politics I came into politics in the late 1980s. But since then, it was always a general rule of thumb that you wanted 3 times the amount of required signatures. And of course, the required signatures in those days was 500. So, simply 1,500, you couldn't come in with anything less. I mean, that was just, the norm. So anyone that was doing petitions in those days, whether you were part of a group or individual, whatever you were, that was sort of the norm. You sort of get yelled at if you came in with less than that. Of course, you wanted to come in with more than that, and bigger political groups did. Bigger political groups came in with 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. So to hear the numbers today, and I'm not being critical, but when I hear 800, 400, 1,200, which there are some groups out there right now professing those numbers, and I wish nobody any bad luck, but it just makes me think of an earlier time where, again, I don't know if it's because of COVID, people are getting lazy, this is the new strategy, but it's obviously working differently.
Well, I've just kind of texted the producer to please end the show, because we were supposed to end at the 45-minute mark, and we're running over by 5 minutes. So I don't know if we continue, Anthony, or we just sign off. But let's.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I am not going to do your taxes. So if you call me, I'm too busy. However, if you need an income tax extension, 347-575-5045. And yes, me and the Bronx Post are going to charge you. So give us a call and we'll get it done. 1, 2, 3.
I mean, we end the show with the Bronx Post commercial. So, I mean, I'm ready to sign off, Anthony, if you're ready to sign off and we'll have no commercial.
I would say let's follow what the Bronx Post advertising is. It says, change the narrative. So I'm going to press the leave button and I'm going to change the narrative. How does that work for you?
That's good. And I'm going to.
All right, everybody. Take care.
Thank you for watching. And hopefully our producer didn't get eaten by his lions that he has. He has 2 lions, our producer. And hopefully he wasn't eaten by the lions. So Anthony's going to say goodbye and I'm going to say goodbye. And thank you for watching.
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555.